Hey, Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. We have a great show for you today. But before we get to the interview, a few admin items to cover. First, I wanted to thank you for listening. We're about 9 episodes in, and Thrive Loud has truly launched right out of the gate. The number of downloads continues to grow, and there are so many great shows coming up over this summer. We'll be able to connect you to some amazing leaders and rock stars that are truly shaking up this world. So stay tuned for the next few weeks, and you're really going to enjoy what you have to hear. If you're new to the show, and you haven't done so already, subscribe to Thrive Loud, which you can easily do in whatever podcast site you listen to, or you can subscribe directly from the Thrive Loud podcast page on thrivepartners.net. Click into the site, go into the episode that you're trying to listen to, and subscribe by clicking on the links that are provided there for whatever listener you listen to. And make sure to recommend us on iTunes or Overcast by clicking the star button to do so. And to learn more about upcoming episodes, you can get updates by following us on Twitter and Facebook by searching for @ThriveLoud. All right, now that we're done with that, let's get on to the episode where we have a chance to interview Jackie the Joke Man Martling. We have an amazing show for you today. I have the legend, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, on Thrive Loud. Please listen all the way to the end. You're going to love every minute of it. Great conversation. Interestingly enough, amazing business advice, and also just the true spirit and passion that comes out from one of the greater people you'll ever meet. And truly a nice guy as well. Get ready for our show on Thrive Loud with Jackie the Joke Man
Now
Martling.
I'm ready to comment.
Yes, you are.
Every time I hear the word legend, you know
don't
what
like
I
it?
hear?
What do you hear?
Old. And then people say, hey, do you know any old jokes? I say, classic jokes. Ah, there's my alarm. I
That was
gotta
your
go
cue.
have sex with my gamada.
Go ahead. Jackie the Joke Man coming on right now.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
All right, so welcome everyone to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you a comic legend, writer, storyteller, radio and television star, Jackie the Joke Man Martling. How you doing, Jackie?
I don't know. After that introduction, it's a little bit heady, but thank you. Thank you.
So I'm really lucky. I'm actually on site. Thrive Loud is on location today, and we're here in lovely Bayville, Long Island. We're calling this Jokeland headquarters. By the way, truly beautiful. We're on the water. It's nice. Jackie commented this earlier. I feel blessed to be here. And a lot of listeners are right now going, who is Jackie the Joke Man Martling? It's very small people. It's the people that actually don't know who you are. So for 18 years, you were a fixture of radio and television's Howard Stern Show. Jackie's left the Stern Show in 2001 after a 15-year run as head writer of the radio show, 4 television series, 3 pay-per-views. He released 6 joke CDs, 5 joke books, and countless joke gadgets of all kinds for children as well as adults. From 2007 to 2014, Jackie wrote and performed his own radio show on SiriusXM Satellite Radio, Jackie's Joke Hunt, and he wrote the joke page for Penthouse Magazine for 17 years. Ooh. He has a new book coming out this October called The Joke Man Bow to Stern. He is still performing around the country, making people laugh every day, and he's right there laughing with them, one of his signature components. And in a way that most people wouldn't think, he is a true entrepreneur and thriver. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you Jackie the Joke Man Martling.
Wow, that's very sweet, Lou. That you know, when you hear it all jammed together like that, it's amazing. You know, because I don't think I'm old, you know. I mean, I just went for a really, really long swim, and I still feel like I'm 30. You know, somebody said something a couple of years ago, which I'm still mad at them for. I said, you know, I still think I'm a kid. And the guy said, yeah, you know, I still think I'm 30 till I try to get up. And every time I get up, I'm like, oh, I get out of a car. I'm like, you know, he's right on. But it's so funny because back in those days, I would accomplish more in a day than I accomplished in a week now. When I was on the Stern Show, we were going full tilt, you know, 4.5, 5 hours a day radio. And then at some point we did a 1-hour television show. Yeah. We started with a blank piece of paper every Monday, and we had a show in the can by Friday. And I remember literally at the end of the first season of the television show, we were kind of only half hoping to get renewed because we were killing ourselves. And then in the 90s, I'm working gigs. I couldn't stop working gigs because the money was way, way too good. So I'd work all week and then go to Chicago or Detroit or something and headline for Friday and Saturday, Las Vegas, whatever. And then sometimes have a weekend off, thank God. But in the middle of all that, all my products were self-built, as far as the LPs and the CDs and the cassettes. And I have 6 CDs out, and they're all 80 minutes long. They're all packed with filthy jokes, and they're all exactly the same, except they're completely different. In other words, each one is 80 minutes of filthy jokes about every different topic at random, all different jokes, but same idea, same template. But I was headlining at clubs. So picture it's 1995, and I'm headlining at Rascals, and I'm theoretically killing these people for 80 minutes while I was still performing and headlining, not trying stuff out. I had to replace all those jokes with another 80 minutes, like spinning plates while I'm moving along. And I did it 6 times. So theoretically, by the end of my 6th CD, those are the jokes I'd be telling you if we were staying at the bar for 8 hours.
Right.
But they're all still killer, and I don't know how.
It's amazing. And by the way, I'm just thinking about it. They did a full work week. You had the radio show at Friday nights, then going on the weekends to do it. And in many cases, you were traveling to these locations to do this. This is burning the candle at both ends.
It gave a whole new meaning to burning the candle at both ends.
Let alone the commute, because I just thought about this. So to get to Bayville, not that easy. You had to get to Manhattan on the west side.
I would drive from here to, I'd get up in the morning and commute to Bayville for 14 years. Then the last year, I got a city apartment and then quit the show. I thought if you get a city apartment, okay, that buys me an hour on each end. All that extra time, completely forgetting that they roll back the streets in Bayville at 8 o'clock, and Manhattan is full of neon.
Right.
So I got less sleep once I would, but it was crazy.
So Jackie at this point is like, all right, I invited this guy in to do the show. And look, he's met so many people in his life. And what I do to all the Thrive Loud listeners is I always like to share how I know the guest, how I'm connected to the guest.
Lou Diamond Phillips is here, and he's a good friend of Ian McKean.
That's right. Lou's a friend of mine.
He's not a comic. He doesn't have boobs. He snuck in here. I don't care.
What's he doing here?
I'm just enjoying the view, both on the left and the right.
Yes,
there you go.
I'm
going to put some up on Facebook.com/Jackie's Joke Hunt soon. 888-STAR-100-1's our number. You know what happened to me today?
I want to ask you, but first I got to give Lou some great news.
Go ahead.
Great news. You ready?
Yeah.
I got 3 words for you.
Absolutely.
Radio show hand jobs.
Oh, sounds spectacular.
Go ahead. You want the bad news? It's from McKean. Go ahead.
So about 4.5 years ago, a friend of mine, Ian, who I didn't know this at the time that he brought it to my attention. He knew that I was a fan of the Howard Stern Show growing up, and literally had been listening to you since 1986, since I was in high school, going into college. I just dated myself there, or dated Jackie.
Don't make me feel old.
Exactly. So anyway, he says to me, he goes, I don't know if you know this, I co-host a show with Jackie on Sirius Satellite Radio. And we have lots of activity going on in the background. The Jokeland House is in full effect. So what we ended up doing was he says to me, come on this show and read some jokes with me on Jackie's show. And I said, oh my God, this would be phenomenal. 1, I get to go on the radio. 2, I get to meet Jackie. And 3, I get to tell jokes. And 1, the thing I said to him, I go, I don't know if I'm that funny. He goes, no, you don't have to worry about being funny. The jokes have been written by Jackie. You're just going to be reading. I'm like, okay. So there I am. It's Ian McKean, who's the co-host of the show.
Ian Carr.
Jackie, the joke man, Martling, and 2 female comics, and this guy in a suit and tie. And that guy in the suit and tie was me. I've never met any of these people aside from Ian before. Let
me ask you, do you have any idea what number show this was?
I think it was 380 something. I'll get you. I have
it was a ways along. Okay.
It was about a year before the show went off the air.
Okay.
So now we go in, and this is the first time actually that I met Jenna Axelrod. And so the first part about this story was when I get to meet Jackie, and now I meet Jenna Axelrod. We have a great time on the show reading jokes, but the real story turned out afterwards. Afterwards, we went out to Carnegie Deli.
Right.
Jackie and Ian took us out, or probably Jackie took us out. I don't know if Ian was going to flip the check. So he's listening. I know this. So we get there.
True joke.
And now, so now Jenna and I started talking because Jenna actually, by day, not only is she a stand-up comic and does all this, but she also is a salesperson. And at the time, I was just starting my business to get some sales coaching and consultants. From that meeting, Jenna ended attending one of the events that I had and actually started working with me. And for all of those who've been to workshops,
never knew any of this.
you never knew any of this. So Jenna came and worked with us, has facilitated many workshops with me. Many people who are listening right now know exactly who she is. She's spectacular, uses great improv techniques to help bring out some of the best in salespeople. But we were there, but the story was while we were there, this other comic whose name I can't remember right now, she was trying to impress Jackie while we were there and was saying the most obnoxious things. And we got into a conversation about the fact that I messed up something with my wife on Valentine's Day, and I made the comment to all of you guys. And she jumped in and called my wife something completely inappropriate. And she was like, we got into this entire discussion. Now, if we had a microphone at this particular dinner, this was going to be better than the show we had just recorded. Everybody was giving this woman crap. Jackie was kind of defending me on some of the pieces of it. And we went to it, and I walked away. I told Ian, I go, this was spectacular. I go, thank you so much for this. I can't believe I got to meet all these great people. Jen and I are going to do some business together. And then what I said to him, I go, one day when I have some kind of radio or podcast show, I will return the favor. And so I did, folks. Not only is Jackie the guest here today, but as best as I could, because God rest in peace, Carnegie Deli is no more.
Oh, man.
Which is just terrible. But I brought us Ben's Kosher Deli from here in Long Island.
In a taste test, I wouldn't have passed it anyway.
So that was the story of how we met originally.
Now, see, you didn't tell me any of that because I thought I knew you from when Jenna made her show.
And yes, that is true. We met. That was, I think, maybe the second time that we met.
But when I met you when we were doing that, did you tell me you had been on the radio?
No, we didn't.
Because we had 402 shows every week for 8 years. So there was a different group of people. And forget the people. I was culling the jokes and writing all the intros and writing all the emails and it was so much fun. I'm kind of glad you didn't tell me because I would have gone and looked it up. I can guess who it was, who the girl was, but we'll talk about it later.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll even play bits from that show as maybe the intro or the outro.
I'll send you the whole thing. Tell me, as a comic, I want to know, did you have fun when we did the radio show?
So this is what was great about the show, and from a great entertainment point. First of all, and this is a great segue into this, what a phenomenal marketing opportunity. Here you were at the time, this is years after being on the show, with the Howard Stern Show, having your own show, bringing in these jokes, plugging your upcoming comic events, obviously, is a great medium to do that. And then you had all of these other comics who would come in who were also headlining or performing at different nights. So this was a great opportunity. You guys did it on like Tuesday nights.
Right, and then not eating up any of their material because all they're doing is reading stupid jokes and getting plugs. It was, why they pulled the plug on the show still breaks my heart, but it was so much fun.
It was fun. It was entertaining. Some of the callers were hysterical and quite interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, of course.
But it was great. It was one of the things that I've highlighted, and one of the reasons I wanted Jackie on the show as well, is that whether you know this or not, you are a master marketer. And this starts out, and I wanted you to share, before we get to talking about the book, which we will do in this conversation, I wanted to hear and let the listeners hear more about your unique marketing techniques ever since you've started out, almost bootstrapping stuff that has really been impressive.
What I'm really proud of, my book is a lot about the Stern Show. Okay, they said, look, let's face it, and I know that's why people are going to read it. So it's bunch about
brilliant
me.
Title, by the way.
Thank you. And it's a bunch about the Stern Show, but getting to Howard is my whole marketing thing. So it all ties in, and it's all in the book. So if you find this interesting, please buy the book because it's an almost. All it is a story of the more crap you throw against the wall, the more chance some of it will stick. But in a nutshell, I was a musician. I wasn't any good. I knew I was. At some point, I said, if I want to eat and get a house and have a wife and try and be somewhat normal, it's not going to be via writing songs and playing music. And I was in a three-piece band, and one of my favorite story in the world, we're in a three-piece band, and at the end of one of the gigs, the guys took me in the back and said, listen, we're leaving the band and starting our own band. And I said, not to be a rocket scientist about this, but if there's three guys in a band and two of them leave to start their own band, that's throwing me out of the band, right? So all I had was jokes. I had collected jokes in my head since third grade. I just knew every joke in the world, but I thought anybody that was raised in, any wise guy kid that was raised in America knew all the jokes. not only do they not know the jokes, the comics don't know the jokes. The people that love them can't remember them. So I started telling my jokes. The whole time I was in the band, I was playing the guitar and telling jokes and, singing our own songs, telling jokes, recording them. And at some point, I said, well, I'm going to try doing this on my own. I'm not going to go in the whole thing how I wound up as a comic and everything, but we started comedy on Long Island, not joined. There was no comedy on Long Island. We started the one stand-up, strictly stand-up show at a bar in Huntington on Long Island. And there's a lot more detail in the book, but I used to record every show on a cassette player.
Yeah.
The left side was me and the right side was the audience. I had my buddy, I worked at a recording studio. That's how I knew how to do this. And he put a plug in the side of the amp so I could take the feed out of my direct microphone. So the left side of the cassette is me, the right side is the audience, and I'd always listen back to my shows. This is long before the days of the micro cassette player and everything. And one day I said to my girlfriend, I said, they laughed every time I opened my mouth last night. I should make a record. She said, so make a record. So I borrowed $100 from 15 different people.
Wow. Okay.
From working at the studio, I knew that making an album was like baking a cake. You needed a master tape. You needed some pictures. You needed some money. And you needed the copy for the labels. And I accumulated everything. And in my 8th grade class picture, I'm literally given the finger. And I'm in the attic of my mother's house. I'm 31 years old. And I threw everything out, from 100 years of living in East Norwich, Long Island. I threw everything out the window and made my first joke land. And I had an old tape recorder from my friend. And I mixed me and the crowd onto a reel-to-reel tape.
Yep.
And then sliced up what I didn't want and edited together 2 20-minute hunks and sent the 2 sides and the picture and the money and the whole thing to Nashville. I'm telling you, Lou, when I went to Port Authority and picked up those 1,000 albums, it was like I was married and just had quintuplets. I was like, I was bursting.
Giving birth to babies. I love
So
it.
here I am working these horrible gigs all over the place with the same guys. And they're making fun of me because I'm standing at the door. I'm the first guy that did this. Bill Cosby had albums and George Carlin had albums. There's no such thing as a local regular guy have an album. So I'm standing there selling my albums at the door and they're breaking my chops. Until they started realizing that we each made $40 that night, but Jackie made an extra $75 because he sold 15 albums at $5 a piece.
Innovator ahead of your time. I like it.
And the stories about that album and who I gave them to, I'm not going to go into any of them, but the stories are so much fun and so ridiculous. So I made an album, made another album the same way, cassette and the crowd, and mix them together and slice them with a razor blade, and it was painstaking. And each time I made an album, I sent them everywhere.
Right.
Like if I met you on the street and you said, oh yeah, I have a club, here's an album. Anybody, somebody who's a marketer or somebody who had a shirt shop. I didn't, if you had a business card, I sent you an album and promotion. And when we first started the comedy show in Huntington, how are we going to promote it? We don't have any money, so I got this bright idea. I'll get a phone line, and I'll tell jokes on the phone line, and then say where we're working, and put more jokes on there. From the word go, it was busy. I got to know the phone company almost immediately. I went from one line. And when it was too busy, I called up the phone line and said, I need a rollover line to another line. Right. They said, well, this is my mother's attic in East Norwich. They said, it's not a business zone. You can't have a rollover line there. Wait a minute. Is this the guy with the jokes? They gave me the second line.
That's great.
I went to 4. I went to 6. Then Nancy Sirianni, who wound up being my wife, came to work with me.
Right.
We went to 10 lines. We're getting between 5,000 and 10,000 calls a day. That's all in the book, explaining how Rick Dees got wind of it in California. I mean, he named me the joke man. So this was crazy. So I'm getting promoted. Then Governor's comes to me. Governor's Comedy Shop wasn't. It was called John Barrymore's, and it was a rock and roll club that was too loud.
Right.
They wanted to do comedy. Somebody said, get the guy with the joke line. They called me. Me and Nancy went over and said, put the stage here, put the speakers here. We had an ad in Newsday every week, Jackie 922 Wine Martling, and it went through the roof. And every time I put out a new album, if you were on my list, you got both albums.
Right.
Then when I came out with the third album, we were sending all 3 albums, the matching cassettes, and all my promo to everybody.
Yeah.
Just everybody.
And you just send them. No charge, no nothing. I'm sending them out free.
Just,
here you go.
This is
Marketing
promo.
Right.
And forget what it cost.
Right.
I mean, the albums, the postage, we were crazy. And we changed that stupid dial joke. Even when it was 10 lines, we changed it every day for 7 years. I mean, we got to East Norwich, one of us, at noon every day. I mean, it's not even believable, but it's true. We had 10 it was a phone-made answering machine with a 1-minute tape.
Right.
And we'd have copies and put them in all 10. And we'd always have a couple extra machines because they died. I mean, it was a ridiculous operation because it cost us a fortune.
Right.
Everybody says, oh, how much money did you make with dial joke? It has cost me a fortune for 40 years. But it made me. Just getting me governors, which wound up paying. So I'm working in Washington, D.C., and these club owners say, hey, there's a guy that just got fired who used to do broadcasts in his underwear here, and he's moving to New York. You should look him up. So, like, we sent those 3 albums and cassettes and promo to everybody.
Love it.
Blindly. Howard Stern, Kara, NBC, never heard of the guy, no idea who he is, just mailed it.
Right.
A couple of months later, he calls up, and they said, come, would you like to come sit in on the show? And I went in and sat in on the show.
And then the rest, I guess the rest is history.
And at the end of the day, Robin, Howard, and Fred said, you're a lot of fun. Come back next week. Now, working at the recording studio, learning how to make an album, making the album, getting the dial joke that got me the governors, that got me the money to make the more album. I mean, it all fed into each other and connecting the dots backwards, like any successful business. And I don't know how successful my business was. I mean, I sold 3 albums, but they served their purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if all that I did was just to get me to WNBC, I almost said K-Rock, to WNBC on that fateful Tuesday, then it was all calculated.
Right.
But I'm telling you, we had no idea what we're doing. No idea what we're doing.
It's so funny. First of all, for those who are listening, we're with Jackie, the joke man, Martling. And one of the interesting things that you just brought up about that, the 922 wine, is still, if you go to Twitter, and you could see him at Jackie Martling on Twitter, at Jackie Martling.
At Jackie Martling.
We'll plug all these tags on the show notes. And the number is still on your description, which is great.
516-922-WINE, which is 516-922-9463.
Which means that has been going on now for 40 years.
Since January of 79. I love when people come up to me and say, hey, man, I used to call your line 30 years ago. And I go, and now everybody has a cell phone. Of course, I go, well, dial it. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, dial it. And they dial it. Hello, this is Jackie. You know how much I love it when you use your finger. And they're like, it's like they're in a time warp.
I love it. And this is great because not only you've actually mixed mediums together. So here we are in the internet age and the mobile age, really, because people are accessing most of the stuff on phone. You're still using the old ways to go do it, and it's still working and still doing it to this day, and it's still helping the brand piece of it, which is amazing.
It's so funny because once in a while on Twitter or email or Facebook, whatever it is, I get a message from somebody like, jokes on the phone, what era are you from? They don't know that it's been ongoing for 4 decades,
There was a guest that I asked, we used to ask, what's your favorite app on the phone? And this one guy got on there. He goes, yeah, it's this little green thing that is the shape of a telephone on it. And when you actually press it, you can call and talk to somebody because nobody's using the phone anymore. It's ridiculous, but it is true. But all of that together, think from the hard work of sending this stuff out, all getting to that particular point. We talk to clients all the time. There's all these different people have strategies, they have tactics, whatever it was. This is actually, you just were living your passion, spending money to do all of this every single day. And that's what got you in the door. And then it just crushed it and rolled it over and knocked it.
I had no idea what I was doing. You got to remember, by the time I was 31, I had been rode and put away wet. I mean, I had been through it. I should have been dead 4 times by the time I met Howard. High school was insane, and then college in the late 60s and playing rock and roll in college, and then playing the whole 70s in a 2-man group on Long Island where we just were out of our minds. When I got my first paycheck from K-Rock in 1986, my first paycheck in my life, except for working as a busboy in high school.
Wow.
I'm 38.
Right.
Nancy's so funny. I love her to death. She lives right next to me, and I used to look at my wallet and go, whoa, because there were $100 bills in there. And she'd say, what's wrong with you? I said, listen, if you go 38 years with no money in your wallet, I'm sorry. I didn't all of a sudden make money when I was 17. I went a lot of years. To this day, I open up my wallet and I have fun putting the 50s and the 100s and the 20s in order. I know it sounds, she says, don't be so dramatic. You're such a, such melodrama. I'm like, no, it's a big friggin' deal. It just is.
My dad has a thing where he likes to place the bills in the exact same direction. The presidents or the whoever have to face the same way. Is that a generational thing?
I do that just because I just enjoy it because I'm thrilled that it's in there, you know. And it could all go away at any point, you know.
So every listener of mine who sees the name Jackie the Joke Man Martling, they're saying, okay, we want to associate with Howard. Now, I want to clarify that I am a fan, and I was a fan of the show. I was a fan of the show probably before it went to Sirius. And one of the things that I loved about the show, and I think you've talked about this, is that you flirted with the line. You never really... back then with the FCC and all the certain things, there were certain things you couldn't say on the radio.
You couldn't.
Right. And it was that part of it that made it so good. No different than why, the Seinfeld episode about the contest was so great, was because they never actually say what it is. But you had a whole shows of that for years.
Before Howard came to Sirius, I had this friend, Phil Iazzetti. He's a great guy. He's a comedy programmer for iHeartRadio, for Comedy 24/7. And he used to work, he got a job at Sirius, and he did a lot of great stuff there. And he never got his credit, but I love him. And I met him at the opening of the Laugh Factory when Jamie opened the Laugh Factory on 42nd and 8th. And he said, man, you got to come in. You're a legend. Come in to my show on Sirius. And it was at noon. And he used to take requests, but it was comedy. So instead of requesting songs, people would request Red Fox or Henny Youngman. Or when they requested somebody, I had a story about anybody they could name. So they loved when I was there, and he'd play cuts from my CDs, which was so filthy, but you could play them on the radio. And then somebody, they said, we want you to be the voice. This is in the very beginning of Sirius. We want you to be the voice of Raw Dog Radio. There was actually a contract. I was supposed to sign a 3-year deal to be the voice of Raw Dog for a lot of money.
And this was the late 90s?
This is before Howard came.
Oh, before Howard came to Sirius.
Maybe a year before Howard came to Satellite.
Got it.
And they called and said, listen, my lawyer said the deal's off the table. I'm like, what did I do? He said, well, they think they're going to get Howard Stern to come to Sirius Radio. And I don't think it was his doing. I think they wanted to clear the plate. And they didn't know my relationship with him, but if they didn't want anything getting in the way, because this was going to be a tough thing to pull off. But to me, I was like, I thought they were not lying is a strong word, but I thought they were full of crap. Right. Because why would Howard come to Satellite Radio? Because to me, dancing right up to the line and around the rules was the whole show. Totally. That was the gorgeous thing about that. People don't realize that. Can't even realize. For 15 years, we never no curse words, and. So I thought they were full of it. And then all of a sudden in the paper, Howard Stern to move to Sirius Radio. So that, I'm agreeing with you, it completely shocked me. Because I would, doing the Stern acts, which was like the Carson Karnak thing, and the song parodies and everything, the double entendres, and yep. That was so much fun because it was challenging as hell. And it always threw me because people say, oh, I can't listen to that show, it's too dirty. I'm like, what was too dirty? The word penis, But he's so groundbreaking. I mean, in 1986, when he started saying penis on the radio, he might as well have been saying no, for Christ's sakes. I mean, that's the impact. People couldn't believe it,
I love the, and it was in Private Parts. It's the first scene, I think, that you're in the movie in the Private Parts is the match game thing where all the, it's just, blank Willow. And everyone always loves it because that's the whole piece. And the stories behind it and everything is great. The genius I actually think the real genius is something that listeners didn't understand. It was never the guests or it was never the bits. It was the chemistry that you had with the rest of the crew. And it's that combination, it's that type of thing that people listen to. That's what makes a great podcast interview. When people have chemistry on a certain thing, you can feel it. And that's what you guys had. Yeah.
That's what we all maintain. That's right. What everybody thought. And Howard is a genius, okay? But to him, it was him. Like, he could have done that show in an elevator.
Right.
And the thing is, he's 99.9%. But that 0.1%, you could have the world's greatest steak, but the littlest pinch of salt is night and day. And he just, and it was like, that's why I left. I asked for more money because we were all in this together. We were putting on this ridiculously wonderful, gargantuan thing. And I was there since the beginning, and I had a hand in it. And I didn't want a big chunk, but, come on, share the wealth, and he just couldn't do that. And I don't think it was money. I think it was more, that's admitting that everybody else has a hand in it. But you're absolutely right. It was a gang. Mm-hmm. When you tuned in, it was a gang. And it was amazing how the bonding of the tri-state area was, I always tell the same stories, but I'd be coming home at 12:30 in the afternoon on a very hot summer day in stop-and-go traffic because there's construction, and I'd be sitting there with my windows open, and a guy'd be alongside me, and they wouldn't say, "Whoa, are you Jackie Martling?" or, "Hey, do I know you from the radio?" They'd look over and go, "So what'd she look like?" She was all right. Howard built it up. She didn't really look that good. Like we started
in
from
bumper
there.
to bumper traffic.
Right, it's like all assumed that everybody who's listening, that sometimes I'd be late and you see all the heads laughing because I'm on the phone and he's yelling at me, "Get to work, you piece of shit," So it made the tri-state area a little place. And I used to park at 59th and 3rd and walk across to Madison Avenue, and it was funny because throughout the year, it'd be dark in the winter and it'd be light in the summer. But the garbage men and the policemen and the firemen, they all knew me and loved me. They yelled, "Yo, Joke Man." It was like walking through Bayville, but I'm in New York City, "Hey, Joke," which I loved,
What inspired you to write it's basically autobiographical now? What was the reason for coming at this point?
I started writing an autobiography in the early 70s just because I thought I had so many great stories about childhood and stuff like that. And of course it was it was funny because John F. Kennedy was the big president when I was a kid, and he had a book named Profiles in Courage. So the name of my book was Profiles in Discourage, which I still, one day that will hit. And then I started writing a book so long ago. It was 1994, and I said, I'm sitting here at JFK waiting for Gilbert Gottfried so we can fly out to Las Vegas to do a show for the UPN Superstation that I think lasted about 5 minutes. And me and Gilbert did a TV show in Las Vegas in 1994, and I wrote a bunch of stuff because theoretically Mel Berger was interested, and then he wasn't. And then I started again. And then when the internet hit, I started writing up my stories and posting them on the internet because there were classic stories from the Stern Show, like throwing the urine in my mother's face, et cetera, et cetera. So I had these stories all written, and then somebody was interested, then they weren't. Then they were, then they weren't. And I kept getting the rug pulled out. But as time went on, I had more and more and more stories, and then I had a couple of solid deals that fell through. And then this one guy called up and said, "So are you still doing your book?" Peter Steinberg from Foundry. And I said, "Yeah, I would love to do it." He said, "I think I got you a publisher. You got me Post Hill Press. And they're great." And I had the whole, over time I had written so much. My book is maybe 30% me, 70% me and the Stern Show, okay? I have that exact same book, again, written in my computer. So if anybody likes this book and likes the way I write and thinks it's fun and funny, because fans of the Stern Show, the stories are all modular.
Right.
Like you could sit and read one story in any order on the bathroom or wherever. So if people like it enough, I got enough to publish this next one the next day. It's just like my CDs. It's exactly the same but completely different.
Right.
The same template. And I didn't really beat the doors down because at one point I thought I had a deal, and this guy helped me do what's it called? The submission thing, the proposal. Right. And he said, "This is the best proposal I've ever worked on." And then nobody bit. And you don't know who took it to who or who, all you need is somebody saying, "I don't like the Howard Stern Show. I don't like Jackie. I don't like, And finally I made it through the cracks, and these people wanted to do it. And I'm so excited. Right now, I'm on page 180 out of 300 going through and making sure there's everything that is right.
Right.
I can't rewrite it. I could just change a word or two or something. And God strike me dead, Lou. I'm sitting there laughing at some of this stuff, and I know.
That's not surprising. You laugh at your own jokes all the time.
But I'm sitting there, I'm reading my life story, right. And I'm surprised, But it's going to be so fun, and there's a bunch of weird pictures, but it's like anything you do, If you're doing a CD, at some point you just got to throw your hands up and step back, because it'll never be done. And all I can think about is what's not in the book. There's nothing in there about the making of private parts.
Right.
There's major things like that. But I have that all written. It's it was Sophie's choice. What goes in, what comes out. Stories about my mother and my family, So I've been at it. It wasn't like one day I said, I want to write a book, and I sat and wrote a book. This has been accumulating forever. And I love the idea of the modular stories.
Yep.
They're chronological. So 1976, the Off-Hour Rockers. 1992, the Channel 9 show. 2006, the Jackie Puppet's Missing. And it's all stuff. Fun. And, and people say, how's Howard going to take it? There's nothing heinous in there at all.
Right.
I'm sure if he went through it, he might have redlined some of the stuff, but it's tough shit,
I think the best way to think of it, first of all, people love the story behind the story. And when you think of all the listeners, like just as we were talking about before, it was the banter amongst the crew that people love to listen to more than anything else, even more than the guests. So reading the story is going to be a great success for you.
One of the things they love the best about the banter is when I got beat up, which was all the time.
Right.
And so much of it was, lies based on actual untruths, So this is my chance to set the story straight about Rodney Dangerfield and this and that. And whether anybody likes it or doesn't like it, I will tell you right now that there isn't an untrue syllable in the entire book. And I'm sure people will contest me on that, but not one untrue syllable.
And that's the best. Look, you've always been authentic. Actually, the visual I just had right now came back from one of the E-Showed episodes when they were harping on the passing of the cat. You remember the whole thing, and it was a real serious and personal thing to you, and you could see, because they had a camera right on you at that piece, the effect that it had with all of it. This is what great communicators and great leaders do. The ones, and that's what Howard has always been very good at. The reason why he's interviewed so well for so long is he's just hits the stuff that everybody wants him to, and he makes it go.
He can find the buttons.
Yeah, and the book, what is interesting, and this is my question because nothing of your nature. I wrote a book and I found the writing process interesting. To someone that used to write jokes, still writes jokes and writes them out and can literally in little note forms and passing them and whatnot, to writing your story, how did you find that challenge for you personally from going from that point to writing yourself?
I always loved writing out my stories. And from the first time, not the very early stuff because I had nobody to share it with, but when I first wrote stories and put them on my internet page, from the word go, you should write a book. This stuff, the way you write is so great. It's so accessible. It's not funny, haha, but it rolls great. I'll tell you the best compliment, the weirdest, best compliment, my ex-wife, I'm so close with my ex. Like, she dates this guy, Bruce, this lawyer, and he's a delightful guy. And me and my girlfriend, Barbara, double date with my ex-wife and her boyfriend. And I gave Nancy a couple of chapters to read and asked her to have Bruce read them. And he said, wow, I really enjoyed your chapters. I had no idea you were that smart. Which is a beautiful compliment. Because, it's not joke, ha-ha, and it flows, and it's good. And people seem to really enjoy it. It's like doing anything.
Right.
You love writing. You know what Dorothy Parker said? She said, I don't enjoy writing, but I enjoy reading. In other words, she enjoys reading what she wrote after she wrote it,
right.
Which is so fun to go back. But
obviously for you too, you were laughing and rereading it.
And I love writing the stories because this stuff actually happened. And then, as you're writing, more comes back to you, like telling any story.
Right.
And this stuff that I don't even dare put in there because not that it's heinous, it's just so much is not believable. Yeah. It really isn't believable. Even though I say that the book is true, I find myself typing, no, really, this really happened. I really enjoy the process. And so what's so funny is I've been working so hard on this, but I hope people like it because I really want to do more. And it's like a great comedy show. If you're a comic, I've been doing it for 40 years, and I drive home with a smile on my face after a great show. I haven't had a bad show in decades, but you always worry. You're always consumed with it, and it always feels great. And after I write a story, there's spring in my step. It's so funny. All those years with Nancy, I always think I'm the same guy. And, you're a married guy, and blah, blah, blah. And she would say to me, boy, pretty obvious who had a good show last night. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because to me, I'm the same guy. Right. Only I guess I'm a little happier because I'm so funny, But it's a truly, truly enjoyable thing. And, you got to be braced for people to go, I see it now, the first review. Who cares?
Right. Someone made the comment that it's no different than reviews of a restaurant. Whenever you go online to read something, it's only the people that had a one-off bad experience or have some gripe to feel have too much time in their hand and say the bad things. The majority of the people actually like and enjoy what they're doing all the time. Like, hey, it hits them in some effect. And what you'll find, I'm sure, when the book comes out, October 24th, right in time for Christmas and Hanukkah or whatever holiday you celebrate. So do you still love performing?
Everybody asks that every night. And the answer is an unqualified yes. Huh. But then I always follow that with, I really don't know if I do or if I've got myself convinced. Jackie Mason had the greatest quote. He said, I never have to work again unless I want to buy something. Which is so beautiful. I have money and I'm fine. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, and I always do the math. Well, if I spend this much per year, and I calculated, I got all the money I'll need to make it to 78. But with my luck, I'll live to 92. But it's obviously not for the money, and it's still. I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm being as honest as I can, because like Saturday, I'm driving to Poughkeepsie. I'm in traffic going to Poughkeepsie, New York, 2.5 hours. To work in an Irish saloon, laugh it up at whatever's Irish saloon, and there's 100 people there. But I destroyed them, and thank you for coming to Poughkeepsie, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and it just works, the best A-B is like last year I did a comedy festival at the Orleans Arena. Yeah. At Orleans in Las Vegas. And it was me and 7 other comics. That's a lot of comics. Billy Giddell, whatever his name is, from Molly and Me, and all these great guys. And I was on 8th. And there's 2,500 people there. And all I could think about is, F Jackie, Baba Booey, right? Because you never know. After they've been sitting there for over 2 hours, I'm on 8th. You could have heard a pin drop. And I destroyed them for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was. But 3 nights later, I'm in Jersey working to 90 people. Right. But enjoying it just as much. And I'm like, you know what? It's my drug. I mean, you just like it. You just do it.
I think Jerry Seinfeld said it's the most clear win or loss opportunity. When you get up there, you know if you've won or you know if you failed. It's like right up there. There's no in between.
There's not right gray area, you know, and it's the same every time, but it's different every time. And every comic, I'll never forget. I was reading a book about comedy way in the beginning, and it were different chapters. And one of the chapters was by Bill Cosby, and the name of the chapter was The Face. And when you find out that other people have the same experiences, that just makes your world. And he said, you'd be up there killing, and there's one person not laughing. And that's the only person you can see, And I'm like, whoa, so it's not just me. I'll tell you, one of the great days of my life was the first time I heard the expression flop sweat. Because whenever I freaked out and had flop sweat, I thought that was God or whoever's personal note to me, you don't belong doing this. You're no good. Right. And then when you see that it's an expression and that people suffer it all the time, it's like all of a sudden you're part of a gang as opposed to the guy that God's telling to get out of show business, And it's just, and then the longer you do it and the better you do it, then the bombing stories get funnier and funnier and funnier,
It's and this is stuff, by the way, goes on whether you're doing keynote speeches or whatever, or just the fear that you have, that whole feel. And people actually...
The anticipation, the reward.
They like to know that fear is there. It goes, I think, I don't know if it was Bill Russell or something like that, an athlete. He made sure that he threw up after every game. That's what it was. Bill Russell, he used to vomit before every game. And they went into one of the big championships, and Red Auerbach goes like this. He goes, all right, what words of wisdom do we have? He goes, why did we play the first half so bad? And he looked back and he goes, oh my God, Bill, go throw up before we go back out there. And they go out and win. This it's along those lines of they have your habits to go through those fears.
And everybody has them, and it's great to know that. It really is great to know that. It's unifying. Chris Rock or somebody said, you don't get paid for doing your show. You get paid for the 20 minutes before. Right. Because I don't care who you are. People come in the dressing room, do you mind me being here? No. And you're not there. Right. No matter what it is, And at some point you're like, Am I being melodramatic? Am I playing Mr. Comedian? Do I think I'm important or something? But no, it's anticipation. I know my jokes. I've been doing this. I know exactly what I'm going to do. It's always fun. And then the mistakes you make or don't make. I mean, I'm just dying to write more books because I think they're all interesting. Screwing up jokes and what happens with this audience and with this heckler. If you're interested in comedy at all, and everybody is, because so many of the books are just the people. You start talking about comedy, it's death. And experiences are funny. Talking about comedy and what do you find? But do you think it's okay to say Polish? And go fuck yourself.
It's the experiences. And you're doing the audio for the book as well, right?
I just got an email yesterday. Jackie, glad to have you aboard. We do the audio for Audible.com, right. And we're all big fans, and we can't wait. And it's going to be a challenge because you have to read it word for word. I mean, there's not a sentence in my book that I couldn't stop and go for an hour,
right?
So that's going to be,
Do you think you're going to laugh through it?
People say, "How can you laugh at your own jokes?" And I tell them, it's harder for me to not laugh. I can't not laugh, and if I try to not laugh, it's like the kid in the back of the classroom. I always tell people, there's two things you don't do. If you want to be a comedian, there's two things you don't do. You don't tell old jokes, and you don't laugh at yourself, and that's all I do.
That's it. We've made a living out of it.
But I've always told people I'm not a comedian. I'm a joke teller, and it's a different genre. When I first started doing it, the comics in New York heard there's some, not kid, but some guy out on Long Island that's doing jokes, and they must have thought that I was looking in a joke book and going up and telling jokes. And I go, hey, take a joke book, take 10 jokes, and go up there, and good luck, because you tell a joke and nobody laughs, and then you tell another one and nobody laughs. It can get lonely really quick, but I've been telling the jokes to people at that point for 30 years already. Right. I already knew all the jokes when I was a musician.
I was going to ask this question because I literally, when I think about a joke, I literally have to map it out in my head first and say, okay, wait, don't mess up the punchline, whatever it is. And that's just me. And you made that comment earlier. How do you know these jokes? And the ability to do it, it's almost, please don't take this the wrong way, it's almost like Idiot Savant-like because it's unbelievable.
It's exactly Idiot Savant. I have always been able to retain them. I learned very early on how to make them work the best. And people would say, why do you tell dirty jokes? I said, because that evokes, not to get heady about it, but if you stand at a bar and you tell somebody the funniest clean joke in the world, they're going to laugh. You tell them a funny, dirty joke, they laugh harder because laughter is based on tension. Mm-hmm. And not knowing what's coming is tension. But not knowing what's coming sexually or as far as body functions or whatever, it just creates more tension. And when I'm telling you a joke, I'm not telling a joke to hear myself talk. I'm telling a joke because I want to make you laugh. Right. I don't care if you're entertained. I want you to laugh. I want to punch you in the stomach and have you guffaw. So I've learned to chop out what's not there. I know enough to go fast when it's not really pertinent information, but make sure I hit the things that you have to know for the punchline. And I got a whole thing how to tell a joke that didn't make it into this book. I'll make the next one. Don't have any words in the body of the joke that are in the punchline. These are all things we used to talk about on the show when Professor Jackie used to go on and on.
Right.
But I just started accumulating them. And when I was in a band in the 70s, if you tell jokes on stage, everybody has a joke for you. And I used to go to the bar in the mid-70s, and somebody said, I got a joke for you. And I'd say, all right, I'll count down from 10. And by the time I get to 0, if I don't know the joke, I'll buy you a beer.
Right.
I never bought anybody a beer because all the jokes everybody knows are the ones that I learned first.
Right.
A lot of the jokes I heard when I was 11 years old. I mean, they're just so funny. They've all been around forever. And people say, oh, that's an old joke. It's so funny because I can tell jokes on stage from 40 years ago or 100 years ago, but I got to be careful because if I tell a joke that just went around the circuit 2 weeks ago,
they're going to get
that's an old joke because every joke is subject to you personally. If you heard it's an old joke, and if you haven't heard it's a new joke, and that same thing is true with every joke, with every person.
Huh.
Like I tell a joke you never heard before, that's a new joke. I tell him a joke that he heard a week ago or 6 months ago. But my favorite thing is people say, I sit there and watch your stupid show and I'm laughing hysterically at a joke. And while I'm already laughing, I'm like, I heard him tell that before, exactly. Which is the nicest compliment.
You've delivered it. You mentioned the part, and this was what I remembered being on Jackie's joke hunt. You gave us notes, and you sent them an email beforehand, and these are the jokes, and you had it scripted which person was going to read each joke, and there were notes in there on which part you needed to slow up on or which one you needed to speed. And I'm looking at this like, oh, just go through this part quickly, and I'm like, who did that? And it's you. That's like, did you have an assistant come in and do this? You wrote that for every joke?
Because I love seeing people hit home runs. I have a show that I'm going to be doing that I haven't pulled the trigger on yet. I did it for 2 months at Broadway Comedy Club in Manhattan, and it was the most fun show in the world. It was Monday nights, and I had no people in there, very few people in there, but it's going to be the greatest show in the world because it'll be different every time. I have a wheel with 36 different categories. Lawyers, Jews, whatever. I saw the wheel.
I saw the wheel in Joke Land.
And I have all the jokes printed out like Jackie's Joke Hunt. And I go on stage and say hello and say, all right, here's how it works. It costs $10 to get in. If you come up on stage and tell a joke, I'll give you $5. If you come up on stage and read a joke, I'll give you $5. I'll spin the wheel. If you have a joke on the subject that comes up, I'll give you $10. But you can only make $10. You can't make money on me. You can only break even. And then I pick on people, bring them up, and I have three hour-and-a-half shows on video, and they weren't taped that well, but it's so funny. Just interacting with the people and the people reading the dirty jokes and the wheel spinning. And as far for corporate, you got a corporate thing where somebody's making a long speech, and all right, now to end our event, we're going to have 20 minutes of Jackie and his wheel, and I'm guaranteeing you it'll be the funniest thing that ever hit, and it's different every time. So I can do it every month at the brokerage, or I could do it, and I'll show you.
I like this idea, and I'm already booking you. So,
but it's going to be such a home run that I'm going to get booked so far in advance But I've already done my homework.
Right.
I put in my 70 years as Jackie the Joke Man, so people trust me. They know the joke's going to be funny. They know it's going to be a good time. They know we're going to laugh. They know. When I first dated Barbara, who I'm just so in love with my girlfriend. She's so great. And when I first met her, she came to one of these Broadway comedy shows. Oh, no, she hadn't come yet. I sent her a tape. And she's not a fan of dirty jokes, and she didn't know me that well. And she said, I fell off my couch because she's what you get away with these people, because I insult them and I'm so rude, but I'm not. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so. But people say, how do you get away? It's not getting away with it. From all the years of interacting with people, and getting with people, like I'll be with somebody and somebody will say, you can't say that. But meanwhile, I'm fine with the other person.
Right.
They'll leave us alone. We know what we're doing over here,
And I talk about this.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know, because this is connecting with people. You actually, what people recognize is they separate in their brain the joke that's coming in, and they don't walk away saying, oh my God, Jackie, he's disgusting, or he's this or that. They just know that you have the ability to make them laugh and you hit them on a way. And we're able to
walk
park
away
that
with
way.
the experience.
Yes.
And it's
brilliant.
always positive.
So give me some of the plugs of the things coming up. This show is going to air on a week from today. So
really?
For those listening today, the date would be the 20th of June that this is going to come out.
All right, so June 28th, Wednesday night, I'm at this place called the Parks Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, and it's so funny because the guy said to me, why don't you ever play Stump the Joke Man here? I said, because the other comics go on too long. I only wind up with 30 minutes. They said, all right, we're going to make plenty of time to do Stump the Joke Man the next time you're there. That Stump the Joke Man is kind of what my wheel thing is all based on. I've been doing it for 40 years. At the end of my show, I bring girls on stage and do the guys, insult the girls. They give me the first line of a 2-line joke. And if they win, they win a T-shirt that says I stumped Jackie the Joke Man. They get CDs, blah, blah, blah. And I've been doing it forever. I was doing a show the other night, and a guy came up and showed me a picture of him holding my album, Going Ape, from 1981. He says, this is my bachelor party at Chuckles on Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
And these are my 3 boys that are all in their 30s.
And they grew up on those albums.
That was his bachelor party, and this is, and I'm in a sitcom pilot that's winning all kinds of awards called Shoot Me Nicely. If you want to see the trailer, it's shootmenicely.com. I tweet a joke at 4:20 p.m. International Marijuana Time every day, sometimes more than one, at Jackie Martling. The dial joke's 516-922-WINE, 516-922-9463. It's always fun. My joke page is jokeland.com, which has my gigs on it. If you love dirty jokes, I email jokes every month. All you have to do is send me an email, jokeland@aol.com. And they're like, who's going to see it? Who's going to read it? I get 5 emails a day. I read them. I love it. I answer. People say, I can't believe you answered. Somebody from England said, oh, how do I get hold of Jackie Martling? You just did, dude. So that's jokeland@AOL.com. And the book is in pre-sale. And I'm proud to announce it's selling into the dozens. It's Jackie the Joke Man, one word, Jackie the Joke Man, all spelled out, JackieTheJokeman.com. If you click on it, it takes you right to the Amazon page. And I keep telling people it's a great holiday book. A great holiday gift. You buy 5 of them. They're easy to wrap because they're books. And you take care, if you've got a friend that's a Stern fan, comedy fan, Jackie fan, it's the ideal Christmas present. So please buy a bunch of them. So, because the main thing, I don't care about the money. I want to be able to release book two. They already signed me up for a joke book, so that's coming down the pike right after that.
2 questions I always ask every listener. First of all, what's the one takeaway you want to thrive live? 3 questions I ask everybody. What's the one takeaway you want the Thrive Loud listeners to walk away with from your life and your experiences and everything that you brought to the table?
That I'm real and that I'm nice and that I'm funny and I'm a decent chap. My favorite thing, when I met Ian McKeon at the Friars Club, he had just joined, and we had talked for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes after we talked, he said, you know what? You are not that guy on the Howard Stern show. Because that was a character that he made me into a fat, cheap, angry old man, because he knew that saying that would make me nuts. My friends are like, you're the most generous guy I ever met. You're the most fun guy I ever met. Blah, 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 So I'm a nice guy. That's what I'd like him to walk away with. Would I like him to buy something? Sure. And would I like to make him laugh even more? Yes.
Perfect. What's your favorite movie of all time, Jackie?
Everybody asks that, and I say Godfather too, and I feel like such a putz, but I would, if I said something else, I would be lying. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, and if I get up to go to the bathroom, I pause it. I love My Favorite Year because that is the story of our Channel 9 show.
That's awesome.
Which is spectacular.
Jackie the Joke Man Martling, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
I'll do it anytime. I'm sure I'm long-winded, but
no, you are perfectly winded, as we'd say, and we got laughs and jokes and everything in there, and I'm pretty sure everyone's going to love listening to this. So thank you so much for being here today.
Great.
And to all of our Thrive Loud listeners, thank you for joining us. Until next week, keep thriving onward and upward, and remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Thrive Loud, or find us on the web at thrivepartners.net.